Bob, tell our audience about D. Hale Brake.
D. Hale Brake was a former state senator who later became the state treasurer for a number of years. Was a candidate for governor 52, I think. Did not make it. Up until we abolished the election of a state treasurer, was the last Republican elected state treasurer. Very much oriented to township government, very fine man. Did not look like he had a sense of humor, but he had a great one. He really did. Came out of Montcalm County. His son was a professor at MSU, Department of Agriculture, for a while. It happens that D. Hale's granddaughter and my daughter became the best of friends at East Lansing High School, Elisa. And so I got to know D. Hale, but he was conservative, township oriented. For a while was, I think, head of or legal counsel for the Township Association here in Lansing. But he was not unreasonable. I know one of the things that I was concerned about was the 15 mil allocation. Now, maybe you don't remember, but there used to be every county would have an allocation board. Well, the old boards of supervisors were run by the rural counties, the sparsely populated. The cities had very little say, which we changed to allow for now the county government. And so they would haggle who would get that last half mil or something. Well, and finally, some of us went to, D. Hale was one, we said, look, you ought to change that. Out of which came the idea that the county, as you have in Ingham, can now vote and fix the allocation up to 18 mills. And it stays that way until it's changed by vote. So it would be the counties would be hassling for a slice, the townships, school districts, whatever. So he was not totally obstruction, but he was conservative. I enjoyed working with D. Hale and worked with him after in the governor's office. So one night we met, and D. Hale came with a pair of jeans or bib overalls, gave them to George Romney because the press said he had stole his pants. And we went from there. And so,
would you tell us when the convention met? Would it meet from Tuesdays through Thursdays?
We normally came in on Monday night, 8 o'clock. We worked till Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday till noon. Now, in the early stages, we probably didn't go there. But when we got into floor debates, we were there. We were on the floor. And we worked. In my article, we worked at article by article, paragraph by paragraph. I assigned out the various people on my committees to take district courts, probate courts, circuit courts, Court of Appeals. Some things went through easily in the judicial article, like Court of Appeals. There was no question we were going to have one. Circuit court stayed the same. We agreed to abolish the Justice of the Peace and the Circuit Court Commissioner, municipal courts, but we didn't have time to lay it. There's a lot involved in that, fines and who gets the money. So we said to the legislature, you got 5 years.
For our audience, could you tell us how the Justice of the Peace system operated?
Well, Justice of the Peace were in counties and cities, and they were a judge. And the ticket.
But you didn't have to be an attorney to be a Justice of the Peace.
Anybody. And it was, in some areas, it was very profitable because you got all the speeding tickets, and Justice of the Peace meant justice for the plaintiff, because unless he found you guilty and fined you, he couldn't assess costs, and the only way he made any money was on costs. So the fine, it would be $20 fine and $5 cost. The JP got the $5. Probate courts were paid on that sometimes, by orders you got. Well, we didn't think that that was kosher, and the bar was very active, and so we abolished that. Bill Ford, now Bill Ford was an attorney. He was a Justice of the Peace in Taylor Township.
And he later became a member of Congress.
Right. He told me, because he was my Democrat vice chairman, I forget how many $1,000s a year he made, because he got all the tickets between Detroit and Toledo on US 24 and 5. That's before 75 is built, you see. But he voted for it. He said, I'm killing myself. Of course, he went to become a state senator in Congress. We debated every debate, judicial-wise, how to select judges. And we went every way, up and down. We debated, and finally it came down, justices, we were not going to change. There was a concentrated effort by a number of Republican attorneys and almost all the circuit judges to divide the Supreme Court into districts. Make Wayne County District elect 2 and then 5 separate districts. Well, that was the system then in Illinois, and we checked it, and it was horrible because it parochialized the judges. And if you're either going to appoint, if you're going to elect, you got to go statewide. I opposed that, and it came back on third reading with, I think it had 45 names on it. It's probably one of the most impassioned, maybe the only one I made. And out of the 45 people who signed, only 43 voted. Two guys said, your speech changed my mind. The quid pro quo, elect the Court of Appeals judges from district. And that was the quid pro quo, which worked out. It was one of the reasons I got this article by Robinson saying I had gotten something through, because we could have had a deadlock.
The Supreme Court at the time was 8 justices.
Was 8. And so what happened was if you appealed from the circuit court and it split 4-4, you were affirmed. You had to get 5 votes to reverse, the idea being that the trial judge was the 5th vote. And we had justices, almost all appeared, not all. Deathmers appeared. He was for the appointed plan, some sort of what we call Missouri. George Edwards came. He was all for election. It all depended how you got there, your background, you know.
But your committee recommended that the size of the court be reduced.
We said, well, once we got the Court of Appeals, then we said the first vacancy caused by death or whatever will not return, will not be filled, because then you didn't need it. Then we debated whether to go from 8 to 9 or 8 to 7. We finally checked other states, and 7 for our size seemed to work, and it does. And so we had that. The convention begins to wind down. Romney's going to be the gubernatorial candidate. And so I decided to run for Attorney General. And I utilized my contacts from CONCON very specifically.
But this time, Frank Kelly had recently been appointed Attorney General.
Now, Frank Kelly was appointed by Governor Swainson to be Attorney General, I think, on January 2, 1962. Paul Adams got elected to the Supreme Court. So on January 2 of 62, Frank J. Kelly, who nobody really heard of, came from Alpena, is appointed by Governor Swainson to be the Attorney General. And so I decided to run with Romney. I utilized all my delegate contacts, which were statewide, Upper Peninsula, Wayne County. Romney did not sit down and pick his slate, per se. He did hold sessions with what he called leadership, county chairman, district chairman. And where was the consensus? Well, my name was in there and going. Had one little fluff going on. Glenn Allen was from Kalamazoo, and he wanted on the ticket. I'm from Muskegon, at West Part. The governor sort of wants Bill Seidman, from Seidman, to be the Auditor General candidate. Well, he's Grand Rapids. Now, how much West Michigan are you going to have? But fortunately, we had Romney from Oakland County. The lieutenant governor candidate was still not, was Clarence Reed, who had been lieutenant governor. Norm Stockmeyer, who's Otto's son, wants to be on the ticket, and so they go round and round, and finally, now some of the Kent delegates, they weren't too sure whether Seidman was a Republican or a Democrat, but see, Seidman had advocated an income tax, which Romney believed in. I remember Walt Russell was the chair, along with Paul Goebel, who became a good friend of mine, and they said to Romney, okay, we'll go with Seidman, but that's after Danhof is nominated, because the Auditor General followed the Attorney General. And so I got nominated, and we ran. Had no money in a campaign. Basically, in those days, you ran hoping that the ticket. The polls looked good for Romney, very good, up until the last weekend.
That was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, we went through the Cuban Missile. No, that's 60. This is 62.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. The Cuban Missile, right, your Cuban Missile Crisis. Plus, we had a congressman at large going. It looked like Al Bentley was going to win, and suddenly the polls began to shift. What looked like a 250,000 vote Romney win is down, and Romney wins by 80,000. If Romney wins by 250, 300, maybe I win. But I lose by about 114 or something. Seidman gets pretty close. Clarence Reed got very close to Lisinski. But anyway, Romney is elected. And
but the fact of the matter is that you held Frank Kelly probably to his closest electoral margin in all the years that he ran for Attorney General.
I used to write the candidates after that in 64, 66. I tell them, look, I started the I Ran Against Frank Kelly Club. I got 48% plus of the vote. If you do better than that, I'll buy you lunch. And I never had to buy any lunch. The closest one was 66, was Larry Lindemer, and that was about 165, 170. But otherwise, Frank was up in the 300,000, 400,000 bracket, you know.